the word is out that Dragon Ball Super is returning in 2023, and Dragon Ball fans couldn't resist themselves by thinking about Broly first. Because the question is, if Dragon Ball Super is returning in 2023, does that mean that the series is going to basically reanimate the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie in a similar way to what happened with Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F, which were originally Dragon Ball Z movies before Super took over? Well, if we use logical reasoning, all signs point to a yes, that arc will probably be reanimated when you consider the fact that it would give more time for the manga to go ahead. And I actually read a really interesting comment where he says, I know before they do the Moro arc, they'll probably retell the Broly movie to give the manga time to get more chapters out. As, mind you, Shueisha told Toei to wait because the manga needs to be ahead, and I imagine Toriyama didn't like the inconsistent stories between manga and anime, as most of his intended story must be followed. So if we do that, and when we also factor in the impact that Toyotaro has, it just makes a lot of sense for Broly to be reanimated, and the anime is probably going to do a lot of interesting things about his character. But one thing that really stands out about the character of Broly is looking at Broly as an actual hero. Now, let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. Seeing Broly as an actual hero is going to be extremely weird. Because when you think about what we've gone through as Dragon Ball fans, this guy was a sadistic sociopath in the first Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan movie, but ironically in that movie he was actually the most intelligent, because when he went into his Legendary Super Saiyan state, despite still being angry and crazy and wanting to beat the shit out of people, he was pretty self-aware of what he was doing, and he was enjoying the pain that he was inflicting on others and insulting them in very wrestling-like ways. So that element of Broly was completely eliminated in Broly's Second Coming, Bio Broly, and even Dragon Ball Super Broly, where Broly is basically just a rage monster in the other three movies, but in the original, he had a lot more intelligence and self-awareness into what he was doing. It was the most personable Broly ever was as a character. And in Dragon Ball Super Broly, Broly is more personable in his base state, but he's really just a humble, simple guy that was gifted with all of this ability and wants to live a quiet life with his friends. That's the vibe, the Tarzan-like vibe that we were given off about him. So if Broly were to eventually join our cast of characters and be an actual hero, like fighting on the side of good, that's gonna be really awkward, especially from a visual point of view, because Broly's like this big, hulking, huge guy. He's not just like a normal character like 17 or 18 that you could just call in and ask for help. It's like asking Broly for help just has like a visual difference from other characters, considering he looks so angry, mean, and huge in his Super Saiyan form. So, honestly, seeing Broly as a hero after all we've seen Broly as a villain or a rage monster is definitely going to be an interesting sight. But the next thing that we also have to talk about Broly here is dealing with power scaling, because if Broly is reduced to a major character or a side character, he's never going to be a main character like Goku or Vegeta. But if he's reduced to a relatively important character in the series, it's going to be kind of hard, because Goku and Vegeta are really strong. So strong that they're on another level from other characters, even though Final Gohan and Orange Piccolo have something to say about that, but that's another conversation for another day. Goku and Vegeta have always been in a league on their own, and considering the fact that Broly's training with them on Beerus' planet, and considering that individually Broly was beating the living hell out of them in Dragon Ball Super Broly, he's like a little too strong to be like a side character. So how do you power scale him, and how can his power develop? You know, because seeing Broly develop into like a calm, normal type fighter would be really weird, because we've never seen Broly like that. Now, we've seen Kale like that in the Tournament of Power, where in the beginning she went into her legendary Super Saiyan Berserk type form, but later on she managed to control her abilities and maintain that power while also being able to fight in a more controlled state. And if we see Broly in a similar role to that, it would be similar to Kale, and I just feel like seeing Kale more controlled makes a lot more sense because she was fighting along with Caulifla, and eventually she fused into Kefla. But for Broly, it kind of takes what makes Broly out of him. You know, so that's definitely going to be something interesting to see how Broly's power scaling is going to be used and how he will be able to be incorporated with our characters if he in fact does become a hero and a good guy in the series. And that also leads us into another point where we are going to talk about how will Broly actually develop as a character throughout Dragon Ball Super. And the thing is, guys, is that Broly doesn't really have a lot of character depth. You know, if you look at a character like Piccolo or Vegeta or even Future Trunks, you know, those characters have a good amount of depth to them. Broly is kind of like a less childish version of Fat Boo. And I think that's a weird comparison to make, but Fat Boo is a very simple character. He's basically a childish monster that just wants to eat and sleep all day. Broly is just a big, strong, muscular dude that wants to protect his friends and live in peace. You know, so there's not a lot more you can do with Broly's character in terms of actual development because Broly never showed the intelligence or interesting personality to really be developed a lot further. So the only thing we can really see is we can see him develop as a character with Shilai and Lemo, and we can see how they can be inserted into the series, whether they decide to live on planet Earth or live with Beerus or so on and so forth. The only real thing is that his development would really be attached to them because their characters have more personality than Broly himself, right? And then when there are some other things that you could also do with Broly too, there's also the whole thing with Frieza, you know? I mean, there is a loose end. Frieza's empire still exists if you look at the Granola arc. If you also look at Dragon Ball Super Broly, I mean, Frieza's empire was still alive because Frieza was granted life after the Tournament of Power. So that kind of makes you wonder, well, then if that's the case, can we have a situation where Broly will, like, fight Frieza and try to get revenge because Frieza killed Paragus? Who knows? Maybe they might even have some scenario where they somehow bring Paragus back in some way. I doubt that, especially at the point that Dragon Ball Super is now. In the manga, Paragus was never brought back, so it's doubtful that could happen. But it is interesting to see how we can go more in depth about Broly losing his father in a stretched out anime series as compared to what we saw in the Dragon Ball movie. And really, the last thing is, guys, is the last thing I could really see Broly's character being used for is a second Tournament of Power, you know? And to be honest with you guys, from a visual point of view, it would really be cool to see Broly in the Tournament of Power. He would pretty much be a hulking monster, and it would be difficult to figure out how strong you want to make him, because if you make him stronger than Goku and Vegeta, that's too much. If you make him like on Gohan's level or Piccolo's level, it's going to be difficult to power scale him, but from a visual point of view, I feel like that is where Broly would be the most beneficial as an actual hero. And seeing that this would be the second Tournament of Power and Universe 6 would be involved, it would be interesting seeing a fight between Broly and Kale. Now obviously, considering how strong Broly is, I mean, that wouldn't be much of a fight because Kale is ridiculously strong in her own right, but I mean, Goku and Vegeta were post Tournament of Power and had to fuse to stop Broly, whereas just Goku in his Super Saiyan Blue state and Super Saiyan God state was holding Kale off. And when he went Ultra Instinct, he defeated a fusion of Kale and Caulifla. So, if you just do the math, Goku and Vegeta had to fuse to fight Broly, and Kale and Caulifla had to fuse to fight Goku. So the power scaling, as strong as Kale is just way too lopsided in Broly's favor. But if there are new characters in the Tournament of Power that are a lot stronger than them, and if Kale and Caulifla are a lot stronger, have mastered newer forms, or so on and so forth, I could definitely see them making a really interesting comeback in the Tournament of Power, and that's basically it, guys. I mean, honestly, there's not that much we could really do with Broly's character, but other than his development with Shilai Lemo, getting revenge on Frieza and fighting in the Tournament of Power, there just really doesn't seem to be much depth to that. But that isn't it, because you are going to share your thoughts in the comment section below and tell me what you think Broly's character can be. But either way, that's all we got for today. You take care of yourself.